Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on this Bestechman Guardian. So, if you didn't know, Bestechman is the budget subsidiary of Bestech Knives. So, naturally, their budget stuff would be to the same standards, hopefully, as the premium stuff. If you haven't handled anything from Bestech, you got to. They make some pretty sweet stuff, and their OEM work and collaborative works with all different types of incredible people throughout this community. They knock it out of the park most of the time. They're pretty high score. They're not perfect score, but they're up there, absolutely. I've only ever handled maybe one other thing on the Bestechman line, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about this thing. This was sent to me, and I want to be 110% transparent with you guys. This was sent to me for free by the company. I reached out because I want to be able to work with companies to get more content, to get in designs that I naturally wouldn't go and just buy on my own. And this right here isn't something that I would go and buy on my own, but I am very grateful for the opportunity and it being sent to me so I can check it out and give you guys my legitimate opinion on this thing. This is not a perfect knife. It is not an amazing knife by any means, but it's also 56 bucks. There are 8 different variations. It's in D2. They have PVD coated versions if you aren't a fan of uncoated D2. Plenty of different G10 colorways that have this little like jeweling texture on it. It's not really much of a, you can't feel it, but they call it a texture pattern. It's more of a visual texture pattern. I personally can't feel anything. This is a very smooth G10, but they finished it in such a way where it almost looks like what jeweling would be on metal, right? You know, like the little swirls and stuff with very high precision, mills to be able to do a finish like that. So they're applying something rather interesting and unique in their budget category. So for sub 60 bucks, I will tell you guys right up front, yes, this is absolutely worth that price, and it's a pretty competitive design, honestly. Now, I can go ahead and take the weight. We'll do 8 size comparison size knives, which I think is a little overkill, but why not? And plus my carry for today, because I think it's of relative size. 3.6, nothing crazy. I mean, you're working with, full thickness steel liners. There is a lot of weight relieving on the inside, which is absolutely appreciated. You get a little back spacer that's also a piece of G10, and you have these nice and robust slabs of their G10 material. It's a very blocky looking shape, and but it really isn't that bad in hand. It could use a little bit more shaping, but realistically, this is something that you can go a good bit of time. There aren't any major hotspots. There are no hotspots on this design, honestly. So you can go a long time using this. It's just that it feels how it looks. It's blocky, it really is, but it does feel the hand, at least for me. I have large, extra large size hands, but I have slimmer fingers, so I have an easier time getting around stuff. It's a very open and welcoming design, absolutely. Let's go ahead and get this thing centered up. I'm testing out a new background here. I tested out a lighter colored one and my camera was acting up. Anyway, let's get into the size comparisons. We have the beautiful Native 5 Lightweight by Spyderco. It's very short in comparison to the Guardian. Here we have the Free Tiger model FT2103. There's also a super budget oriented model that has D2 blade material. This one will make a show back on a little bit later, just in comparison, talking about materials and whatnot. Alrighty. That Free Tiger is also about the same size as a standard Benchmade bug out as well, if you guys have one of those or have handled one in the past. Here we have the Civivi Vision FG. Next we have the Pyrite Light, and I know at least one of you guys watching this has to have had one of these or handled one, and it is exactly from tip to tail the same exact length. The Vision FG is just a little bit longer, not that big of a deal. A couple more here. We have Manix 2 Lightweight, Spyderco. This is the Predator by C&B Made Knives. Obviously a whole lot bigger. And the last two, just because we have full-size Sebenza 31 and full-tie MSI. These are obviously ginormous knives in comparison. And I think it would have been really cool to see this in a much larger variation. That's not something you guys hear too often coming from my channel, because I like smaller, compact designs. And speaking of smaller and compact designs, this is what I carry today. This is the Concept Loki 2, or we're gonna call it the Loki 2 because the blade shape hole is a little bit different. But as you can see, the Loki 2 is actually smaller than the Guardian, almost by a whole inch. But I love carrying this thing. And I hope to see an XL version of this thing eventually. I think that'd be really, really awesome. But the same thing goes for the Guardian. I think that this design would absolutely lend itself to a much larger, design. It would have been pretty cool if the actual available cutting edge was more closer to, I don't want to say 4 inches, but 3.75. I think that'd be pretty cool. The actual cutting edge, I have the stat paper right here. I just want to make sure. Let's see, overall length. Does this even tell me the blade length? Well, that doesn't make any sense. It says the blade length is 4.3 inches, and that's not right at all. But regardless, I'll link down Blade HQ. It is a non-affiliate link. I'll see if I could find it on Amazon as well, just because Amazon just is awesome and they just ship faster. But that one will most likely be affiliated, and it's probably one of the easiest ways to support my channel if you guys care to do so. I'd definitely appreciate it if you do. So I'll have a ton of different links you guys can go and utilize. I even have some discount codes, like with Skiff Knife Works as well, for 10% off. Use JTT10 if you're interested in upgrading pivot systems. All right, so we did size comparisons. Let's bring back that budget model. Now, there's gonna be a little bit of a stretch here, but we have two super budget oriented knives right here. We have D2. We have a very budget oriented blade material and very similar construction. I will say that these knives are on par in construction. Different locking mechanisms, similar clip design as well. Kind of blocky, kind of simple, kind of no nonsense blade shape. Awesome tension on the Omega springs on this thing here. And on this thing, the spring has gotten to a point where it's just very underwhelming. I'm not really happy with how light the spring is on this. Now, it's just kind of a weird one. I haven't felt a button lock that feels quite like this. And I say that in a neutral way, just because it's not good and it's not bad. What I mean is that the way that they have finished, or their execution of the traditional plunge lock, it allows for nice, solid, release. It is nice and snappy. So there's enough tension holding this thing in, but the button is really, really mushy, and it's the button doesn't have a whole lot of weight behind it. It doesn't take much effort to actually disengage that. The only thing keeping this thing from damn near effortlessly disengaging, like if you just drop a feather on it, is the fact that I do and have continued to have button stick on this model. Now it comes and goes, but for the most part, I can kind of count on it, at least while I have had this knife. So I don't mind it so much. If you guys do not like button stick, buy at your own risk. There are coated ones. Typically coated knives have stick more than uncoated knives, and that's kind of why I had a little bit higher hopes for this one, and I was surprised to see that it had as much button stick as it did. This really does feel like early 2024 button locks that were coming out. There were a lot of really good button locks that came out, and even towards the end of 2023, but I feel like this is just taking me back there. mentally. That's what this feels like. This feels like a very budget-oriented button lock knife where the company hasn't quite figured out the actual tension that is required for you know, the most satisfying close. They got the opening nice and snappy, right? Like this it's a beautiful action within the pivot, running on, you know, ceramic bearings as well. But on the close, there's nothing there. Let's see if I can hold this to the side. It's a very, very weak spring. It doesn't suck the blade back in aggressively like a lot of new models within just the end of last year were able to achieve, even down to this price range, of course. So it's kind of odd. It's kind of late to the game, and that's where I think this thing sits, genuinely speaking. The construction overall, it's good for what it is. I can't say that this is a good representation of what Best Tech is capable of. Honestly, I kind of feel like this might have been something that was rushed and just kind of slapped together just so they can put out just another button lock design. The blade does have some character to it, right? Rather unique looking. Pretty good plunge grind here. I did go ahead and put a 16-degree edge on this, and it doesn't look crazy. This thing has some wild bite to it, absolutely. So I have a super slicey edge on this D2 blade material. This thing is really going to perform, and with a very open and simple design, you can just go to work with this and have pretty good confidence. I have done some light spine whacking, and on top of having that relatively consistent button stick, I can't say that I'm uncomfortable, you know, carrying around this button lock. And that's something that is very different from the early button locks that had lock failure and things like that. If you guys remember, Vosteed had you know, a couple models when they first started popping off with all their crazy button locks, where their button locks were failing left and right, and eventually they got it right, and then months later they moved to their liner lock engaged button lock thing that has really taken off for them. So that's great for them, but I genuinely think that the time of the just traditional plunge lock it's over. It really is over, because it is quite unsatisfying. That's just my opinion. There are plenty of other people that maybe you don't have the best dexterity, and this is something that is for you. You're gonna like that you can, you know, slow roll this, and it still has a nice click. It still locks up nice and solid, no up and down, no side to side. There's a tiny bit of movement within the pivot if you pull on the blade, but realistically, when the hell are you ever gonna do that? Not really. This isn't something you're gonna be prying with or doing any sort of hard use kind of tasks. This is a slicer. It's a performer. It's in D2 blade material. Do with that information what you will. Let's talk about the overall construction of this, as far as clip going in and out of the pocket, the hardware, the body hardware. Here you have a T8 for the pivot, and that's the only T8 there, which kind of sucks, because there isn't anything keeping this model or keeping Best Tech or Bestechman away from putting T8s. Why not? I mean, their tooling is good. The T6s all over the body, and there are quite a few of them, honestly. There are quite a few T6s all over the place. The tooling is good. There's nothing really wrong with it. The threads are nice and healthy. They catch really easily, nice and solid. I don't feel like I'm going to cross thread or like really mess this thing up. So that's another thing too, that if you are a little shy of taking stuff apart, and even when you're dealing with really dinky little hardware pieces and stuff like that, you know, rest assured, this thing's easy to maintain and work on. But again, it would be pretty cool to just have T8s all across the board. There is nothing keeping the company. This was they were fully aware and conscious of doing this, to put just a handful of T6s all over the place. As well as the pocket clip here, there's one tiny little flush mounted T6 there. There's also a milled spot in the actual G10 itself that's holding in that clip for it to not wiggle. It's squared off to match, and it's pretty well finished. It's a nice simple little polished stainless steel clip, nothing really fancy about it, but it's not reversible. Kind of sucks. There are a lot of arguments and a lot of people out there that would suggest that button lock knives can and very much, be used by left-handed individuals. I'm not lefty, but as you can see, this is a design that is very easily to manipulate left-handed. And this is also one that surprisingly, if you squeeze on it, you can't disengage it. I'm really, really gripping on this damn thing, but I can't disengage that because it has that stick. So do with that information what you will. Are you okay with relying on a button lock having stick as a lefty so that you don't accidentally pop it and it just comes down on you? Because that would suck. That would really, really suck. I think the best thing to do for Bestechman, Bestech moving forward, is just to scrap button locks, stick to what they're good with. But if they want to do something innovative, they really should think about the liner, the top liner lock from Vosteed. Not technically a patented term, so I guess you can use that here in this case. But like the smock lock, right? That's another thing too. It's a liner lock that's like back here instead of here, so it's still technically ultra finger safe. I love that. You get a detent ball with that, so you have beautiful detent release and also that suction to get it back into the handle. One thing that I find myself having an issue with often is that when I open it, it's perfectly fine, but when I close it, it typically has this bounce to where the blade doesn't actually. This is an issue with having a weak spring. There's not much keeping the blade from bouncing back out. There it is right there. So it didn't take much, but when, let's say you're at work or on the job site and you're carrying this model, you go and maybe you have some really thick working gloves, you can't get to the hole, but you can depress the button just a little bit and just kind of whip it out. If you were to go like this and just casually bring it back down to to collapse the blade, this is what ends up happening. That's not it's just not good. It really isn't good. And like I said, I'm being completely transparent with you guys. This was sent to me for free. Releasing this video could very well end any future work with Bestech or Bestechman, but that just goes to show you where they're at. So let's say somebody from their development department sees this and they actually understand what I'm saying and can take the genuine critiques when it comes to safety, because that's what this is. This is a gripe about safety. And the easiest thing to do is just to get, if they want to continue doing a plunge lock, I mean, they got the fitment right. I'm okay with having a little bit of stick as long as it's consistent, because it's not an uncomfortable, annoying amount of stick. It's actually something that I don't mind. I'm okay with relying on it personally, and a lot of other people don't want to rely on button lock stick for solidity overall of their button lock, but just get a stronger spring. Companies just need to start working with stronger springs if they're gonna be doing traditional plunge locks, because they need something that's nice and robust to be able to keep that blade sunken down into the handle. Because in a moment, you're not paying attention and this blade, pops out and you go to put it in your pocket, and it doesn't give a lot of confidence. The execution and the springs that they're using on this particular design, and maybe it is just this model, maybe it is just this unit that they picked for me. Now, a lot of people would say, well, if a company sent you a free knife, they're going to send you the very best one possible. Yeah, it could be, but go ahead and take a look at the size of my channel. I have under 3,000 subscribers. It's me putting out something that's not super positive or super negative isn't really going to do anything to anybody's reputation, but it's my own reputation that I have to stand for and be conscious of. Absolutely. So that's why I'm being completely transparent with you guys. It doesn't matter what happens with future works with different companies. If they send me something that isn't to the standards of basic safety and common sense and good designs and finish, I'm gonna let you guys know. I'm gonna be transparent with you guys. So if Bestech wants to continue doing something like this, please, 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 for the safety of your consumers, put stronger springs. I can't say nothing realistically about anything else. That is the one and only legitimate thing I can complain about this design. Besides that, I can't say nothing about the D2. I can't say nothing about the odd looking blade shape. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. The really blocky handle that looks kind of like an unfinished design, it works. Surprisingly, the clip, it works. It's not reversible, but it works. The T6s are annoying, but they work. That's it. Alrighty, so not much else to really say about this thing. I had a piece of, well, I did. I don't know, we can go ahead and just, this was like the info thing that they sent to me. So it was available for purchase at various retailers on the 21st, and it just gives you the measurements and stuff. I don't think that a lot of these things are actually correct, but that's why I do the you know, the size comparisons. Definitely help out with that. Let me just take that. Yeah, just stupid amounts of bite on this thing. So now this is something that I would typically give away to a viewer, do a little giveaway thing, but my father-in-law has already claimed this. So when the company came and offered me this model to check out, I showed it to him because coincidentally that same night he was telling me that he wanted to get something that with a really low tip, because I was carrying this dude right here, Concept Knives, Main Street, with their crossbar lock. Love this damn thing. This was my holiday knife. I carried this through the majority of the holidays. Love this freaking thing. It's a pretty sweet knife. But he was just like, hey, I like that blade shape. I think it's really cool. There's a lot of, you know, utility they can get out of it. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, man. So, you know, when he saw this after I showed it to him, he was just like, yeah, I would really like something like that. And I told him, I said, okay, well, just let me do my thing with it, make some content out of it, and it's yours. But just be aware, uncoated D2, you got to keep your shit clean or it's going to rust on you. And now that I know about the, you know, the kind of the weak tension on the button lock, I'm going to once again take this thing apart, see if I can stretch the spring a little bit to get a little bit more tension, sucking that blade back into the handle, and then give it to him. Fingers crossed nothing happens. But yeah, that's it. So if the design speaks to you and if the price is right to you, I'd say go ahead. Not a bad design. There's nothing that's genuinely wrong with it besides that little spring. You can get replacement springs off like Amazon and stuff like that and put in your own springs. There are plenty of people that have been doing that already. If you guys remember people that bought extra springs for the Demco Knives 80-20.5, there are people that really like the tension on those springs and will actually trim the springs to custom build, you know, springs for other knives. I didn't know people were doing that until I saw a video of somebody literally clipping some Demco springs, and I was like, that's freaking weird. And I used to have a handful of 80-20.5s, and I had sold them off already on Blade Binge forever ago, and included extra springs and whatever. But I was like, damn, that's pretty smart. There's definitely much smarter, brighter people out there than myself. But that's an option as well. So is this something that I recommend to buy? Like I said, there are a couple nitpicks. The only genuine complaint that I have about this is just the spring. And again, this could just be my unit. So with a lot of other knives within this price range, for the materials that, for the materials that they are offering, you know, within that value, I'd say that this is good to go. I don't see anything genuinely wrong with this. I do recommend it only because of its genuine value and that the action is pretty good when you get it good. So when you get yours, take it apart, stretch that spring. I know it's a little annoying to have to do any kind of maintenance or service on a knife that you just bought, because it should just out of the box be ready to go, but it's going to be worth it. Stretch that spring out a little bit, fidget with it, eventually it'll break in. I mean, this thing was stupid drop shutty out of the box already. But yeah, that's my only complaint. I genuinely wish and I hope that they start using stronger springs, or at least tune them up a little bit better from the factory. I mean, they got the centering, they got good clip design. They include a backspacer versus cheaping out and just making little standoffs. They could have done that too. It's you cannot touch the blade back here even though it's open. You can't pick out the tip, surprisingly. And that's it. That's all I really have to say about this model. If anybody from Bestech or Bestechman is watching this, thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope that this is taken as constructive criticism and not disrespectful by any means. For my viewers, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because I play more videos and content coming you guys this way. With that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.